I'm Amelia Mitchell, 28, and last month my phone lit up with news that shattered my world. My grandmother Catherine had suffered a severe stroke. After 5 years of minimal contact with my family in Philadelphia, I dropped everything in Seattle to rush to her bedside. But walking into my childhood home, I didn't find a medical emergency. I found my family celebrating with champagne. They'd fabricated the entire crisis to get me home for something far more calculated. Before I dive into how my family's deception unraveled, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength when family betrays you. Growing up in Philadelphia's affluent mainline district meant privilege on the surface, but emotional poverty underneath. We're fixtures in Philadelphia's social elite. My father ran a successful investment firm, while my mother orchestrated charity galas that had more to do with networking than actual charity. From my earliest memories, I knew I didn't quite fit the Mitchell family mold. While my older brother Ryan excelled in sports, academics, and later followed our father into finance, I was drawn to art and creativity. My sketchbooks were my refuge in a home where emotional expression was considered a weakness. Art is a hobby, Amelia, not a career. My father would say dismissively whenever I'd show him my latest drawing. The Mitchells are business people, not starving artists. The only person who truly saw me was my grandmother Catherine. Grandma Catherine lived in her own wing of our family estate, having moved in after my grandfather passed when I was 10. Unlike my parents, she'd stop by my room just to see what I was creating. She'd sit on my bed, her elegant hands, always adorned with her signature pearl ring, gently turning the pages of my sketchbooks. "You have a gift, Amelia," she'd tell me, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Never let anyone convince you to bury it." My Aunt Valerie, my father's sister, lived nearby and was a constant presence at family gatherings. She'd watch my interactions with Grandma Catherine with thinly veiled resentment. "Isn't it sweet how Catherine plays favorites?" she'd comment to my mother, loud enough for me to hear. The summer I turned 16, Grandma Catherine invited me for tea in her garden, just the two of us. As butterflies danced around her prized roses, she took my hand in hers. "I've set something aside for you, Amelia," she said quietly. "When the time comes, you'll have what you need to pursue your dreams, regardless of what your parents think is suitable." She made me promise not to mention it to anyone, especially my father or Aunt Valerie. That secret sustained me through high school and college at Penn State, where I majored in graphic design despite my parents' pressure to choose business or law. Every family dinner became a battlefield of passive-aggressive comments about wasting potential and phase she'll grow out of. After graduation, the tension escalated. I secured an entry-level position at a small design firm in Philadelphia, which my family treated as if I'd announced I was joining the circus. My father reduced it to playing with colors on a computer, while my mother wondered aloud what she would tell her friends about my career choice. The breaking point came during Christmas dinner 5 years ago. I'd been offered an opportunity with a growing design agency in Seattle, a dream position that would challenge me creatively and offer advancement potential. "I'm moving to Seattle in February," I announced, trying to sound confident as I pushed my barely touched turkey around my plate. The silence that followed was deafening. "You're what?" My father's voice was dangerously quiet. "This is just another one of your impulsive decisions," my mother sighed, reaching for her wine glass. Ryan, always the peacemaker when it suited him, attempted intervention. "Dad, Seattle has a growing tech scene. There might be some investment opportunities." "This isn't about investment opportunities," my father interrupted. "This is about Amelia once again choosing to disappoint this family." Aunt Valerie chimed in. "Catherine, aren't you going to say something? She's abandoning her family for some artistic whim." Grandma Catherine set down her fork deliberately. "I think Amelia should follow her talent wherever it leads her. I'm proud of her courage." The argument that followed was explosive. My father threatened to cut me off financially, though I'd been supporting myself since graduation. My mother cried about family loyalty. Ryan stayed silent, his eyes fixed on his plate. Only Grandma Catherine defended me, which further inflamed the situation. I left the next morning without saying goodbye to anyone except Grandma Catherine, who slipped me an envelope containing a check that helped me secure my first apartment in Seattle. "They'll come around," she assured me. Though neither of us really believed it, the years that followed were transformative. Seattle embraced me and my creativity flourished. I advanced quickly at the agency, eventually breaking off to start my own freelance business specializing in branding for sustainable companies. I made new friends, particularly Zoe Campbell, who became the sister I never really had in my biological family. My contact with the Mitchells dwindled to obligatory birthday calls and stilted holiday greetings. Only Grandma Catherine maintained regular communication, calling weekly on Sundays to hear about my latest projects and clients. She never pressured me to reconcile with my parents or brother, understanding that the distance was protective rather than punitive. Occasionally she mentioned that things were tense at home, with my father's business facing some challenges and my brother taking on more responsibility. She hinted at family financial discussions that got heated, but never elaborated. I never pushed for details, preferring to keep my new life separate from Mitchell family dynamics. "Your father asked about you yesterday," she mentioned during our call 2 weeks before the emergency. "I showed him the website you designed for that organic skincare company. He didn't say much, but he noticed your work." That small acknowledgement, the first in years, had sparked a tiny hope that perhaps time was softening the family's stance. How wrong I was. What I didn't know then was that Grandma Catherine had recently made changes to her will. The substantial Mitchell family fortune, built over generations through real estate and investments, had largely been controlled by my grandfather, and then my father as executor. But Grandma Catherine maintained control of her personal inheritance, a significant estate including property, investments, and family heirlooms worth millions. Apparently, she had seen something in the family's behavior that troubled her deeply, enough to make a decision that would spark the elaborate deception I was about to encounter. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon, while I was in the middle of a client presentation. My phone vibrated persistently in my pocket, the same number calling repeatedly. When I finally excused myself to answer, my brother Ryan's voice sounded strained and unfamiliar. "Amelia, it's Grandma Catherine. She's had a stroke. The doctors." His voice cracked. "They're saying we should prepare for the worst. She's asking for you." The conference room spun around me as I gripped the phone tighter. "What hospital? When did this happen?" "Early this morning. She's at Pennsylvania General. Amelia, you need to come quickly. She keeps saying your name." I ended the client meeting abruptly, apologizing profusely while already booking a flight on my phone. The earliest direct flight wasn't until 8 p.m., meaning I wouldn't arrive in Philadelphia until after midnight East Coast time. "That's cutting it close," Ryan said when I called back with my flight details. "The doctors aren't sure how much time she has." Rushing home to pack, my hands shook so badly I could barely fold clothes into my suitcase. I called Zoe in tears, explaining the situation while throwing toiletries into a travel bag. "Something feels off about this," Zoe said after I explained the sudden emergency. "Didn't you just talk to your grandmother 2 weeks ago? She was completely fine then, right?" "Yes, but strokes can happen suddenly, especially at her age," I replied, though Zoe's doubt planted a tiny seed in my mind. "Let me come with you," Zoe offered. "You shouldn't face your family alone after all this time." "I appreciate that, but I need to do this myself," I insisted. "This is about Grandma Catherine, not old family drama." As my Uber arrived to take me to Seattle-Tacoma Airport, Zoe hugged me tightly. "Call me the minute you land, okay? And Amelia, trust your instincts if something doesn't feel right." The 5-hour flight gave me too much time with my thoughts. Memories of Grandma Catherine flooded back, teaching me to garden, showing me how to properly hold a charcoal pencil, defending my choices when no one else would. The thought of losing her created a physical ache in my chest. I tried calling the hospital from the plane's airphone, but couldn't get connected to her floor. Text messages from Ryan continued throughout the flight. "Dad's a mess. Never seen him like this. Mom's staying overnight at the hospital. We're taking shifts. Doctors tried another treatment. No change yet. Hurry, Amelia." Each message amplified my anxiety and guilt. Perhaps I should have visited more often despite the family tension. Perhaps I'd been selfish putting my own needs first these past 5 years. Landing in Philadelphia just after midnight, I expected someone to meet me. Instead, another text from Ryan. Sorry, can't leave the hospital. Take an Uber to Pennsylvania General. Exhausted and emotionally drained, I collected my single suitcase and headed to the rideshare pickup area. The Uber driver, sensing my distress, remained mercifully quiet during the ride into the city. Philadelphia's familiar skyline emerged through the window, bringing back a flood of complicated emotions. Just as the car approached the hospital district, another text message appeared, this one from my mother. Catherine's been moved home for comfort. Doctors advise familiar surroundings. Come to the house instead. A flutter of confusion disturbed my grief. Moving a critical stroke patient home seemed unusual, but I wasn't familiar with end-of-life protocols. I redirected the driver to the Mitchell family estate in the mainline suburbs, adding another 30 minutes to the journey. As we drove through the ornate iron gates and up the curved driveway of my childhood home, I noticed something odd. The driveway was filled with cars, my father's Mercedes, Ryan's Audi, Aunt Valerie's BMW, and several others I didn't recognize. If everyone was supposedly at the hospital in shifts, why were all their vehicles here? Paying the driver. I stood in the circular driveway staring up at the imposing colonial facade. Lights blazed from the main floor windows despite the late hour, expected if medical personnel were attending to my grandmother. But something else caught my attention. The sound of laughter. Not the subdued, reminiscent laughter of people comforting each other in grief, but boisterous, celebratory sounds utterly incongruous with a deathbed vigil. The weight in my stomach transformed from grief to dread as I approached the front door. Instead of ringing the bell, I used my old key that I'd kept more from sentiment than practicality. The heavy door swung open silently onto the marble-floored foyer. The sounds of clinking glasses and animated conversation drifted from the main living room. I moved quietly toward the sound, my suitcase abandoned in the entryway, my heart pounding against my ribs. What I heard next stopped me cold in the hallway. To Amelia finally coming home and doing something useful for this family, my father's voice boomed, followed by the distinctive clink of crystal champagne flutes. I froze just outside the living room doorway, my hand braced against the wall for support. Do you think she suspected anything? Aunt Valerie's voice slightly slurred. About Catherine being in Europe? Not a chance, Ryan replied confidently. Amelia always had a blind spot when it came to Grandma. The moment I mentioned Catherine was asking for her, she was booking her flight. Let's focus, my father interjected. Once she arrives, we need to act quickly. The grief and jet lag will work in our favor. Diana has prepared the transfer documents relinquishing her claim to the trust. My mother's soft laugh floated through the air. The family reconciliation angle should work nicely. She always was desperate for approval. I still don't understand why Catherine changed her will in the first place, Aunt Valerie complained. After everything we've done for her, she leaves everything to Amelia, the girl who abandoned her family. Because Amelia was always her favorite, my mother sighed. Catherine and her artistic temperament, birds of a feather. It doesn't matter why, my father's voice hardened. What matters is fixing it. When Catherine returns from her European tour next month, everything will already be legally transferred back to the family trust where it belongs. And if Amelia won't sign? This from a voice I didn't recognize, perhaps a lawyer. My brother's response chilled me. She'll sign. Between the emotional manipulation and her exhaustion, she'll be easy to handle. If not, I have samples of her signature from the birthday card she sent Grandma. Plan B. The implication of forgery hung in the air. It's not like Amelia has any use for $4 million anyway. My father scoffed. What would she do with it? Buy more colored pencils? Fund more of those ridiculous environmental design projects? The girl has no concept of real business. Aunt Valerie agreed. Catherine's senility is the only explanation for leaving her the estate. To success, my father declared. By this time tomorrow, the Mitchell family financial crisis will be averted, and everything will return to its proper order. More clinking glasses. More laughter. I stood paralyzed, trying to process what I was hearing. Grandma Catherine wasn't dying. She wasn't even in the country. There was no stroke, no emergency. Just an elaborate trap designed to lure me home and trick me into signing away an inheritance I didn't even know existed. The betrayal was so complete, so calculated, that for a moment I couldn't breathe. They had exploited my love for my grandmother and my grief at her supposed condition, the most cruel manipulation imaginable. Without conscious thought, I stepped into the doorway of the living room. 5 pairs of eyes turned toward me in shock. The tableau before me was surreal. My father standing by the fireplace, champagne flute raised mid-toast. My mother perched elegantly on the sofa, a folder of documents on the coffee table before her. Ryan lounging in my grandfather's old leather chair, looking so much like our father it was eerie. Aunt Valerie by the bar cart, already reaching for the bottle to refill her glass. And a man in an expensive suit I didn't recognize, presumably the lawyer, looking the most uncomfortable of all as he registered my presence. For several heartbeats no one spoke. Amelia. My mother recovered first, hastily shoving the documents under a magazine. You're earlier than we expected. We were just celebrating Grandma Catherine's stroke with champagne? I finished for her, my voice surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. No, of course not. My father stepped forward, his expression shifting to one of practiced concern. This is a family planning meeting. For Catherine's care. The champagne is inappropriate, I agree. Ryan set his glass down and approached me with arms extended as if for a hug. Sis, you made it. We were so worried about the late flight. How was your journey? I stepped back from his embrace. Illuminating. Especially the part where I just learned Grandma is actually in Europe. Perfectly healthy, while you orchestrated this fake medical crisis to get me here. The color drained from Ryan's face. His eyes darted to our father in panic. You misunderstood what you heard. My father said smoothly, setting down his glass and buttoning his suit jacket, a gesture I recognized from childhood as his preparation for serious manipulation. Catherine did have a health scare. But she's recovered enough to take her planned trip. We were celebrating her improvement. Really? I pulled out my phone. Should I call her right now to confirm that story? It's the middle of the night in Europe, Aunt Valerie interjected quickly. That's strange because according to what I just heard, you've been intercepting her calls to me for weeks. So obviously you have a way to reach her, emergency or not. The stranger in the suit cleared his throat. I should be going. This appears to be a family matter. Stay right where you are. I snapped with an authority that surprised even me. Since you're here to facilitate my signing away my inheritance, you're very much involved in this family matter. My mother rose from the sofa, adopting the wounded expression that had guilted me into compliance throughout childhood. Amelia, darling, you're tired and confused. Let's get you settled in your old room, and we can discuss everything in the morning. I heard everything, I said flatly. The fake emergency. The plan to manipulate me into signing documents while I'm grieving and exhausted. Ryan's backup plan to forge my signature if I refused. Dad's financial crisis that you're trying to solve with Grandma Catherine's money. Money she specifically left to me. The pretense of concern dropped from my father's face, replaced by cold calculation. You always were dramatic, Amelia. This is a family matter that you couldn't possibly understand. Your grandmother's assets belong with the family, not with an outsider who turned her back on us years ago. An outsider? The word stung despite everything. I'm your daughter. A daughter who chose to abandon her family responsibilities. Aunt Valerie interjected. Catherine is confused about what's best for her estate. We're simply correcting an unfortunate error in judgment on her part. Ryan tried a different approach. Amelia, be reasonable. What would you even do with that kind of money? Dad's investment firm has hit a temporary rough patch. The family needs these assets to weather the storm. You're out in Seattle playing with your art career while real business happens here. The condescension in his tone sparked something in me. Not just hurt but rage. You faked a medical emergency. I enunciated each word clearly. You made me believe my grandmother was dying. Do you have any idea how cruel that is? Business requires difficult decisions, my father replied coldly. Catherine's sentimentality toward you threatened decades of Mitchell family financial planning. We did what was necessary, including intercepting her calls and emails to me. For how long? My mother at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. It was for your own good, darling. Your grandmother was filling your head with impractical ideas. The weight of their collective betrayal was staggering. Every Sunday call I thought I'd had with Grandma Catherine over the past few months, had it actually been her? Or had they been screening, editing, perhaps even preventing our communication? You're going to sign those transfer documents, Amelia, my father said, dropping all pretense of affection. The Mitchell family has built something significant over generations. I won't allow your grandmother's momentary sentimentality to jeopardize that legacy. I stepped backward toward the doorway. I'm leaving now. Don't follow me. If you walk out that door, my father's voice dropped dangerously, you'll regret it. You have no idea what's at stake. I think I do, I replied, surprising myself with my composure. And I think Grandma Catherine understood exactly what she was doing with her will. As I turned to leave, Ryan grabbed my arm. You always thought you were special, didn't you? Grandma's favorite. The artistic one. You have no idea how to handle this kind of money or responsibility. I yanked my arm free. Don't touch me. Any of you come near me, and my first call will be to Grandma Catherine, and my second will be to the police to report elder financial abuse and attempted fraud. The look of shock on their faces as I walked out gave me a grim satisfaction that lasted precisely as long as it took to reach the front door. Then the reality of the situation crashed down upon me. My family hadn't just lied to me. They'd orchestrated an elaborate psychological manipulation preying on my deepest attachments and fears. They'd viewed me not as a daughter or sister, but as an obstacle to money, an inconvenience to be manipulated, or failing that, defrauded. I stumbled down the driveway, calling for another Uber with shaking hands, grateful I hadn't brought my suitcase inside. As the headlights of the approaching car illuminated the grand facade of my childhood home, I realized I was crying. Not from sadness, but from a toxic mixture of rage, betrayal, and an odd sense of validation. My instincts about my family had been right all along. The Hilton in downtown Philadelphia offered anonymous comfort at 2 a.m., a clean and personal room where I could fall apart in private. Once the door closed behind me, the composure I'd maintained crumbled entirely. I sank to the floor, back against the bed, and sobbed until my throat was raw. Every memory of my childhood rearranged itself through this new lens of calculated manipulation. Had any of their affection ever been genuine? How many other machinations had occurred behind the scenes of my life? Most urgently, was Grandma Catherine truly safe and well in Europe, or was that another lie? After several attempts with shaking fingers, I managed to dial Zoe in Seattle, forgetting the 3-hour time difference until her groggy voice answered. Amelia? Are you okay? Did you make it to the hospital? There is no hospital, I choked out, the words triggering a fresh wave of tears. No stroke. It was all a lie to get me here. I poured out the whole sordid story, the fake emergency, the overheard plotting, the inheritance I never knew about, the family's financial desperation, and their willingness to exploit what they perceived as my greatest vulnerability, my love for my grandmother. Those absolute monsters, Zoe breathed when I finished. Amelia, this is beyond dysfunctional. It's criminal. They were planning to defraud you and potentially your grandmother. I don't even know if what they said about Grandma Catherine is true, I admitted. Don't confront them again without legal protection. I don't even know any lawyers here anymore, I said, feeling helpless. And it's the middle of the night. I'm looking up top estate attorneys in Philadelphia right now, Zoe replied, the sound of typing coming through the phone. And I'm booking a flight. Don't argue. You shouldn't be alone with those vultures circling. While Zoe researched lawyers, I tried every method I could think of to reach my grandmother. Her cell phone, email, even the social media account I'd helped her set up years ago that she rarely used. All went unanswered, amplifying my anxiety. Sleep was impossible. As dawn broke over the Philadelphia skyline, I sat cross-legged on the hotel bed with my laptop, conducting my own investigation. A deep search on my father's investment firm revealed troubling news articles I'd never seen, allegations of mismanagement, rumors of an SEC investigation, and my mother's social media showed fewer of the luxury shopping sprees and charity galas she'd once flaunted. My research was interrupted by an alert from my bank. Someone had attempted to access my accounts with incorrect password entries. The IP address traced back to Philadelphia. They weren't wasting any time trying to get at whatever assets I had. By 9 a.m., I'd secured an appointment with Benjamin Clark, a senior partner at a prestigious Philadelphia law firm specializing in estate litigation. By noon, Zoe had landed and met me at his office, her fierce loyalty a balm to my shattered trust, occasionally making notes in a leather-bound portfolio. Unfortunately, Ms. Mitchell, what you're describing is not uncommon in wealthy families when large inheritances are at stake. The law firm that had handled the Mitchell family's legal affairs for generations. After identifying himself and explaining he represented me, he was connected to Edmund Harriman himself. I'm calling regarding Catherine Mitchell's estate, Benjamin stated professionally. My client, Amelia Mitchell, has concerns about potential misconduct by family members relating to her grandmother's current estate plan. I held my breath as he listened to the response, unable to hear the other side of the conversation. I see. And you can confirm that Mrs. Catherine Mitchell did indeed execute a new will approximately 3 months ago? And the primary beneficiary is? He glanced at me. Amelia Mitchell, correct. Another pause. And Mrs. Mitchell's current whereabouts? I understand she's traveling. The confirmation came moments later. Grandma Catherine was indeed in Europe, specifically at a wellness spa in Switzerland she visited annually. She had indeed changed her will. Harriman. Has Mrs. Mitchell expressed any concern or confusion about her estate decisions? Any indication she wishes to reverse these changes? The answer appeared definitive based on Benjamin's expression. Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch. After ending the call, Benjamin turned to me. Your grandmother appears to be of sound mind and firm in her decision. According to Mr. Harriman, she was quite clear that she was disappointed in your father's business decisions and your brother's character development. She believes you're the only family member who shares her values. What a lovely surprise. I've been trying to reach you, but the reception here in the mountains is dreadful. I couldn't maintain my composure. Grandma, they told me you had a stroke. Dad, Mom. With Benjamin and Zoe listening supportively, Grandma Catherine's reaction moved from shock to cold fury. This explains why your father was so insistent I signed those documents giving him power of attorney before my trip, she said. I refused, of course. I've seen how he's mismanaged the family investments. That's precisely why I updated my will. I never knew about any inheritance, I assured her. That's not why I came. Of course it isn't. Darling, you came because you thought I needed you. And now I do, but not for medical reasons. I need you to help me protect what I've built from those who've forgotten what truly matters. By the end of our conversation, a plan had formed. Grandma Catherine would remain in Switzerland temporarily, while we gathered evidence and prepared legal countermeasures. Benjamin advised recording any future interactions with my family, as Pennsylvania was a two-party consent state, but made exceptions for gathering evidence of crimes. Zoe, who had taken a week off work to support me, helped me prepare emotionally for what came next. They're going to try to manipulate you again, she warned as we strategized in my hotel room. I'll be there. That night, I slept soundly for the first time since receiving that devastating call in Seattle. The path forward was clear. The large mahogany table was set with coffee service and pastries, as if this were a normal family gathering rather than the aftermath of an elaborate deception. Amelia, darling. My mother rose, arms extended for an embrace I didn't return. I'm so glad you've come back so we can clear up this unfortunate misunderstanding. Let's skip the performance, I suggested, taking a seat at the far end of the table. We all know why I was lured here under false pretenses. That's a rather dramatic characterization, Ryan interjected. Clark. Benjamin Clark of Hamilton and Reed. I represent Amelia in all matters relating to her inheritance from Catherine Mitchell. There's been a misunderstanding about that as well, my father said smoothly, nodding to my mother, who produced a folder of documents. Catherine has always intended her estate to remain within the family trust, which I manage. Her recent adjustment to her will was made without proper financial counsel. That's interesting, I said, considering she specifically told me she made the change because she doesn't trust your financial management anymore. My father's face flushed with anger, But he maintained his composure. Catherine is getting older. She doesn't always understand the complexities of our investment strategies. The SEC investigation into those strategies might disagree, Benjamin remarked casually, causing my father to pale visibly. You've clearly been misinformed, he replied stiffly. My mother, always the social strategist, attempted to reset the tone. Amelia, we're not here to argue. We're family. Surely we can come to an understanding that benefits everyone. I'm listening, I said, nodding to Zoe, who discreetly activated the recording app on her phone as permitted by Benjamin. Ryan leaned forward, adopting his most reasonable expression, the one he'd used throughout childhood when trying to convince me to take the blame for his mistakes. Here's what we're proposing, he began. 000. To support your design business or whatever creative projects you choose. You'll have financial security without the burden of managing such a large estate. That's very generous, I replied, not touching the folder. What happens to the remaining $4.1 million? It remains in the family investments, of course, Aunt Valerie said impatiently, where it can be properly managed. Who opened his laptop and established a video call. When Grandma Catherine's face appeared on the screen, the color drained from every family member's face simultaneously. Hello everyone, Grandma Catherine said, her voice crisp and clear, and unmistakably healthy. I understand we have some family business to discuss. Catherine, my father recovered quickly. We're so relieved to see you well. There was some confusion about your health that concerned us all greatly. How interesting, she replied. Considering you personally told Amelia I had suffered a stroke and was near death, a condition you invented entirely. The silence that followed was deafening. Catherine, you don't understand the situation, Aunt Valerie attempted. Howard's company is facing temporary challenges. I understand perfectly, Grandma Catherine interrupted. I understand that my son, his wife, his sister, and my grandson conspired to emotionally manipulate my granddaughter by convincing her I was dying, all to gain access to my money without my knowledge or consent. Once that's resolved, everything returns to normal. Amelia has no use for that kind of money. She makes websites for tree huggers in Seattle. Actually, I interjected. I run a successful design agency specializing in branding for sustainable businesses. I've been profitable since my second year and have a client waiting list. I don't need your financial rescue. This is absurd, Ryan exploded, showing the temper he usually kept carefully concealed. You're going to let our family's legacy collapse over some ridiculous favoritism toward Amelia? Think about what your father has built, what generations of Mitchells have created. For a moment, looking at my mother's pleading expression, I felt the familiar pull of guilt and obligation. This was the crossroads, the moment where I'd typically cave to maintain peace. Instead, I took a deep breath and delivered the speech I'd rehearsed. For my entire life, I've been told I wasn't a real Mitchell because I chose creativity over finance. I was belittled for my career, my choices, and my values. When I left, not one of you, except Grandma Catherine, tried to understand my perspective or maintain a genuine relationship with me. I looked at each family member in turn. Dad, you called my work worthless yesterday while celebrating the fake news of Grandma's stroke with champagne. Mom, you referred to me as desperate for approval while plotting to manipulate me. Ryan, you were prepared to forge my signature if emotional manipulation didn't work. My voice remained steady as I continued. You didn't call me home because you missed me or valued me. You called me because you needed access to money. That's not family. That's a business transaction with people who happen to share DNA. This is all a misunderstanding, my father insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. We have the conversation recorded, Benjamin stated calmly, both from yesterday when Ms. Mitchell overheard your planning, and today's discussion. Pennsylvania makes exceptions to two-party consent laws when gathering evidence of crimes such as fraud or elder abuse. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly from manipulative to hostile. You recorded us without consent, my father demanded, standing abruptly. That's illegal. No court would. As I just explained, there are exceptions, Benjamin interrupted. But we hope legal action won't be necessary. We're prepared to offer terms. This was the moment I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Benjamin outlined our position clearly. They would cease all attempts to access my inheritance or interfere with Grandma Catherine's estate plans. They would return any intercepted communication between my grandmother and me. In exchange, we would not pursue legal action for the attempted fraud, elder financial abuse, or identity theft. Identity theft? My mother questioned, genuinely confused. Ryan's face betrayed him with a flash of guilt before he could compose himself. "This is how you treat your family?" my father asked me, his voice cold. "With threats and legal maneuvers?" "I learned from the best," I replied simply. What followed was 30 minutes of alternating threats, guilt trips, and attempts at negotiation, all of which Benjamin fielded professionally while I remained silent. Throughout it all, Grandma Catherine watched from the laptop screen, her expression a mixture of sadness and resolve. Finally, when it became clear we wouldn't budge, my father's rage overtook his judgment. "Take the damn money then," he shouted, slamming his hand on the table. "When the family business collapses and the Mitchell name is dragged through the financial pages, I hope your precious independence comforts you. You are no longer welcome in this house or this family." "Howard," my mother gasped, still hoping to salvage the situation. "That's your choice," I said, standing to leave. "The Mitchell name will continue to mean something in this city, just not what you've reduced it to." As we gathered our things to leave, Ryan approached me, his expression complex. Walking out of that house felt like shedding a weight I'd carried my entire life. The magnificent colonial mansion that had once intimidated me now seemed like an elaborate facade hiding emptiness within, much like the family it housed. In the car, Zoe squeezed my hand. "You did it. You stood your ground. We're not finished yet," Benjamin reminded us. "But the hardest part is over." Through the laptop, Grandma Catherine's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm proud of you, Amelia. It takes tremendous courage to break cycles of manipulation. When I return next week, we have much to discuss about the future." As we drove away from the estate, I didn't look back. The family that had tried to exploit my love and grief no longer held power over me. I had faced their worst and emerged stronger, not just financially independent, but emotionally free. 1 year later, I stood in the bright, airy space of Mitchell Design Collective, my expanded studio in Seattle's vibrant Capitol Hill neighborhood. Large windows overlooked the city skyline, while the interior buzzed with the creative energy of the small team I'd assembled. On the walls hung framed examples of our work, branding for companies committed to sustainability, social justice, and ethical business practices. Using a portion of my inheritance, I'd created exactly what I'd promised my family that day. The Mitchell Arts Foundation, providing scholarships and program funding for young artists from underserved communities in Philadelphia. The foundation, guided partly by Grandma Catherine's wisdom, had already supported 37 students in its first year. The journey of healing hadn't been simple or linear. Despite the decisive confrontation with my family, untangling the emotional damage of decades required professional help. Weekly therapy sessions helped me process the complicated grief of losing the family I thought I had, while accepting the reality of who they actually were. Grandma Catherine had returned from Europe and, after assessing the situation thoroughly, made the difficult decision to move to Seattle. She purchased a comfortable condo near mine, allowing us to rebuild our relationship without the toxic influence of the rest of the family. I spent too many years enabling behavior I knew was wrong, she confessed one evening as we shared dinner on my balcony. "Your courage gave me the strength to make changes I should have made long ago." 83. She had embraced Seattle's culture with surprising enthusiasm, joining a senior watercolor class and attending symphony performances regularly. The distance from Philadelphia had revitalized her, and our Sunday dinners became a cherished tradition. The Mitchell family in Philadelphia maintained their distance, though not without occasional attempts to reconnect, always on their terms. My mother sent birthday and Christmas cards with carefully worded messages that never acknowledged the deception or its aftermath. My father remained completely silent. Ryan, however, surprised me 6 months after the confrontation with an email that seemed genuine in its remorse. "I've been reflecting on who I've become and the choices I've made. But I hope someday we might talk again. After discussing it with my therapist, I responded with cautious openness. Who had stood by me through the darkest moments, became my business partner when her marketing expertise proved the perfect complement to my design skills. We expanded to a team of 6, carefully selecting people who shared our values of creativity, authenticity, and ethical business practices. Today, as I prepared for the Foundation's first annual showcase featuring artwork from scholarship recipients, I reflected on the profound shifts in my life. The inheritance that had nearly torn my family apart had instead become a vehicle for healing and positive impact. "Everything ready for tomorrow?" Grandma Catherine asked, arriving with lunch from our favorite local cafe. "Almost," I replied, accepting the paper bag gratefully. "Just finalizing the program. The student pieces are incredible, wait until you see them." She smiled, settling into one of the studio's comfortable chairs. I never doubted they would be. To exploit my grief and love, all to maintain control of money they viewed as their entitlement. Yet the true value of that inheritance had nothing to do with the dollar amount. The opportunity to create positive impact, rather than merely accumulate wealth. My phone chimed with a text from one of the scholarship students, sending a preview of her artist statement for tomorrow's showcase. Her words caught in my throat. "Before the Mitchell Arts Foundation, I didn't believe someone like me could pursue a creative career. Now I understand that my voice and vision matter." This opportunity didn't just change my circumstances. It changed how I see myself and my future. I showed the message to Grandma Catherine, whose eyes misted over as she read it. "That," she said quietly, "is the true measure of wealth." As the afternoon sun streamed through the studio windows, I recognized that the painful journey had led me exactly where I needed to be. The family that had tried to exploit my love had inadvertently set me free from their toxic patterns. The inheritance they had schemed to control had become a force for positive change. That evening, hosting a small Thanksgiving dinner in my apartment with Grandma Catherine, Zoe, and a few close friends, I looked around the table at the chosen family I'd built. The conversation flowed naturally. Laughter came easily, and not once did I feel the need to diminish myself to fit someone else's expectations. "To finding family in unexpected places," Zoe toasted, raising her glass. "And to writing our own stories," I added, feeling a profound sense of peace. The inheritance that truly mattered wasn't the money. It was finding the courage to write my own story and discovering that family is defined by love, not blood. Sometimes the greatest gift in betrayal is the freedom that follows when the illusions finally shatter. What about you? Have you ever had to set boundaries with family members who couldn't respect your choices? How did you find the strength to stand your ground? Drop a comment below to share your experience. Sometimes the family we choose brings more healing than the family we're born into. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you the courage to honor your own truth, whatever that may be.